Hello and welcome back to the simulated 2024 F1 World Championship. This is round number 17 of 24 from Baku in Azerbaijan. The European races are done and dusted and we head east as we go into the last third of the season, starting the flyaway races in a country which has definitely not been controversial at all as of late. Side note, I know about Sargent being replaced with Colapinto, but as of right now I have no methods of replicating this transfer in the game, so Sargent remains in our simulated championship for now. If Codemasters update the game to make the transfer, Colapinto will be added accordingly. Here's how the drivers' standings shape up after last time out at Italy. Verstappen increases his lead at the top as Norris jumps back up into P2, essentially swapping places with Tsunoda as Leclerc remains in P3. The next 4 places remain as they are, with Hamilton, Sainz, Alonso and Gasly in 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th respectively. Of note is the single point separating the Spaniards of Sainz and Alonso. Albon gets himself back up to the top 10 after a solid outing at Monza, with Piastri slipping down to P10. The Constructors' standing sees Red Bull retake the lead, getting back ahead of Ferrari and leading the Scarlet team by 3 points. McLaren keep themselves in play in 3rd, with RB staying in 4th, 30 points behind the Papaya cars, with Mercedes slipping further back in 5th after a pointless race in Monza. Sauber inch ever closer to Aston Martin in P6, and Williams gain ground on Alpine in the fight for P8. Haas still remain in last. Compared to the actual standings, Verstappen's lead over Norris continues to go down slowly but surely, with the two now separated by 62 points. Leclerc solidifies 3rd after taking victory at Monza, with Piastri remaining in P4. Sainz slips a little further back from the Australian in P5, with Hamilton, Perez and Russell also remaining stationary in the table. The two Astons of Alonso and Stroll continue to round up the top 10 despite not scoring. As for the Constructors, despite no changes to the order, Red Bull's lead to McLaren is now down to just 8 points, with Ferrari also looking to pounce a further 31 points back. Mercedes lose ground in the fight at the top, and Aston Martin are still very lonely in P5. RB's gap to Haas shrinks by 1 point, and Alpine's gap to Williams shrinks by 2. Sauber, as you might expect, still have 0 points and remain last. Now, it's time to find out who will be racing as for the Azerbaijan GP. With Zhou driving to victory around Monza, we are now left with the final 4 drivers on this wheel, including a driver who isn't even racing in F1 anymore. So, without further ado, let's see who the wheel deems worthy for us to drive as around Baku. And in an extremely humorous turn of events, we get the driver who has recently been replaced. That's right, we'll be driving as Logan Sargent in the Williams. Can we show that Williams were wrong to drop the American mid-season, or will we forget what a kilometre is and end up at the back? It's time for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix.
It is a truly unique layout. Welcome to Baku and welcome to qualifying.
Shout out to the subtitle there saying welcome to qualify. That sounded very good English there, but here we are, we're in the Williams as Logan Sargent, and it's a very wet Q1 session here in Azerbaijan. We decided to set a lap pretty much off the bat, which is not a very good lap, a 152.795, which puts us at the rear of the pack. But the session does dry up later on, which gives us a chance to go for another run on the soft tyres, and this run goes a lot better in fact, putting us right up to P1 for Q1, which means we go straight through to Q2, and we've lost from Q1, Nico Hülkenberg, Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, the biggest shock there, being out in Q1. Valtteri Bottas is out as well, along with Lance Stroll and Kevin Magnussen in the Haas, who actually has a 1-race ban in real life for this race, so that's pretty funny, but he's starting from the back. Leclerc only starting 17th, he's got to do a lot of work to get some points to get a good result here in Baku. As we move to the end of Q2 now, we set our lap time. It's good enough for P4 instead of P1, but that is good enough to get us into Q3. And we've lost from Q2. Oscar Piastri in the McLaren is out, along with Sergio Perez in the Red Bull. Esteban Ocon in the Alpine. George Russell once again out in Q2 in the Mercedes. And our teammate Alexander Albon is P15 and last in this session. So we've lost 1 McLaren, 1 Red Bull, and 1 Mercedes. And we also lost 1 Ferrari as well. So each of the top 4 teams is out going into Q3. So Verstappen is the only Red Bull, Norris is the only McLaren, Sainz is the only Ferrari left, and Hamilton is the only Mercedes. As you can see, both RBs actually made it through into Q3 there, which is very good for them. As we go along our final tour of qualifying now in Q3, we were P1 in Q1, in Q2 we were P4, and hopefully we're looking to replicate our Q1 performance and get on pole. Lap is not amazing so far, but not bad either, very average I'll say, as we hit the end of Sector 1. It's actually the fastest Sector 1 out of anyone so far, as we go through this incredibly complex track. It's very technical as we move towards the castle section now. This will probably be Sargent's best qualifying session of the season, or maybe in his F1 career, depending on when Codemasters does the transfer for Colapinto, if they do the transfer for Colapinto, that is. As we move now towards the end of Sector 2, still going along very nicely. We've got Tsunoda there in 6th and Ricciardo in 9th, Sainz in 7th. I would hazard a guess and say that Verstappen is currently P1, but I don't know that as of right now, as we set the fastest time in Sector 2, so our time is looking very good, although the top right does come up with greens for both of them, but it does come up purple on the map, so I'm not sure whether we're actually fast or actually we're not. But what we are having is a little bit of an issue with our ERS. Our ERS is about to run out, and we're about to lose deployment going down the fastest part of this racetrack, which is definitely not going to help our Sector 3 times. We charge to the line, hold on to the left-hand side to get the shortest run to the line, and we end up P3 only. So losing deployment down that straight definitely did not help us out in the slightest. We start on the second row, only 34 thousandths off pole, which of course goes to Max Verstappen. Fernando Alonso actually only 6 thousandths behind Max there in P2. We share the second row with Zhou Guanyu, who's actually had a very good qualifying here. Hamilton in 5th, Norris in 6th. We've got 2 Brits on the third row. Yuki Tsunoda in P7, ahead of Carlos Sainz in 8th. Gasly is in 9th. And Daniel Ricciardo rounds up the top 10 in, well, 10th. So there we go, qualifying is done. The grid is set. We've got some interesting places here for the race. But now it's time for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix.
Baku is built different. We have tight and narrow streets. Here in the capital city, we have castle walls, but the main sight to see today, Formula One cars moving at rapid speed. With 20 turns and a length of 3.7 miles, Baku City Circuit in the heart of the Azerbaijan capital is a real test of a driver's endurance, patience and precision. 90-degree corners through Sector 1, leading to a tightening uphill sprint as we start to circle around the old city. Then a 1.4-mile chase flat out through Sector 3 towards the finish line. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. World champion Max Verstappen starts from pole position, and Fernando Alonso completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Sargent, Zhou, Hamilton, Norris, Tsunoda, Sainz, Gasly, Ricciardo, Oscar Piastri, Perez, Ocon, Russell, Albon, Hulkenberg, Leclerc, Bottas, Stroll, and Kevin Magnussen fills the last spot on the grid. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway. And we welcome you to the commentary box overlooking the circuit. I'm Alex Jakes, and I'm joined by Anthony Davidson. I love this moment in the weekend. Put us in their shoes right now. What are they feeling on the grid?
You've got to know, you've got to have a pre-race game plan. You've watched videos before you get into the car of previous races gone by. You know where you have to place your car if X, Y or Z happens in front of you or behind you. So having this clear game plan is absolutely essential before you get in the car.
I cannot believe it. They actually talked about something else other than the pre-race routines. I can't believe they actually said some different dialogue. But here we are, we're on the grid looking at our strategies. It's actually rather interesting that the default strategy is a 2-stop and the alternate is a 1-stop. I decided to go with the default. I know it requires 1 extra stop, but hopefully our speed difference can cancel that out. As you can see, most people seem to be going for the 1-stop, starting on the hards. Myself, Piastri and Stroll all starting on the mediums, and Perez is the only one starting on softs. So Perez is probably going to be the quickest driver in the earliest part of this race. But most people going with the one-stop strategy of starting on the hards and then going on to the mediums for the rest of the race. We'll see how that pans out, but I decided to do something a little different in P3. So compared to the guys around us, we should be quicker on the first part of this race. So our plan here is to try and jump Alonso and Verstappen in the first part of this race, and then basically just clear off and try to negate the extra stop I'm going to have to do compared to the cars around us. So this is going to be interesting. Basically, my strategy is pure speed, flat out, gun it to the line, and hope for the best, and hopefully we can get a win for Williams here as we move on to 5 red lights. And it's lights out, and away we go. And we make a very good start as we jump Alonso off the line going around the outside of turn 1. We overtake Alonso immediately, so one car is down. We now need to catch Verstappen and overtake him as we move into turn 2 now. We see Piastri, I think. Oh, actually, there might be Norris going down the inside of Sainz and Gasly. 3 wide going into turn 2. Doesn't seem to work out too well for Lando Norris. He is down in P9. Piastri making a decent start. He's up to P10. As we go through turn 3 now, Verstappen still in the lead. Couldn't do much about the straight line speed. We've got more of a technical, we've got more of a downforce, which is interesting. It's probably going to hurt us down the final sector, but in the other sectors, they'll probably come to our advantage as we're right behind Verstappen, pushing him along through sector 2 as we go through to the castle section. As you can see behind us, Zhou's actually jumped Alonso as well, so Alonso not having a good start. Zhou now up to P3. Alonso now down to P4 as we still chase Verstappen through the castle section now. Verstappen's still leading. Hopefully we can get a bit of slipstream going down the main straight. We won't have DRS, but hopefully we can get him down the straight, overtake him quickly, and then bugger off, as they say, in the lead. But nonetheless, as we look for the order, Leclerc's actually slipped down to P19 from P17. Magnus is still in last, but Leclerc not having a good start. It seems like Albon and Russell have stayed stationary. I think Perez has stayed stationary as well, despite being on soft tyres, remaining in P12. As we slipstream now, Verstappen down the main straight. We activate our battery. Remember, there's no DRS, so we've got to rely on our straight line speed, which we don't really have because of our setup. But the slipstream does help us, does allow us to go side by side with Max Verstappen as we cross the line onto lap 2. It's going to be whoever breaks the latest going into turn 1, and that would be us in the Williams. And we take the lead from Verstappen at the beginning of lap 2. So preferably, we would have liked to have overtaken Verstappen on lap 1, but now we've got the move done, and we move up to P1. As we see our teammate now on lap 6 with smoke billowing out of his car. Albon is the first person to retire from this Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Very much a shame for him, and probably very concerning for us as well, considering we're in the same car. We're on the same team, same car, so hopefully our engine doesn't go at the end of this race. As we move on lap 12 now, nothing really much happening. We do have a bit of a gap over Max Verstappen, 5.3 seconds. So we are doing our job. We need to keep on going though, because we need to make up a pit stop within the time frame, and hopefully jump Verstappen when it comes to our pit stops and take the lead of, well, take the win of this race. As we see Perez, the first of the cars to pit. He was on soft tyres, so it does make sense. He moves on to mediums for his second stint, so he's probably doing the reverse of what we're doing. He's going to go soft, medium, medium for this race. It does put him down in P19, but he will have some fresh air to pump in some very quick laps, so it should work out for him as long as he doesn't mess up or have an issue. As we see Ricciardo in P11 being slipstreamed by Ocon down the main straight here, and Ocon blasting past with DRS. Ocon up to P11 now. Ricciardo kind of falling down the order after starting in P10. His RB not really up to scratch here, as Russell's now looking to make a move on the Australian driver going through turn 2. And remember, they will have DRS as we see Bottas now going through the castle section, and his engine also goes. Bang. Bottas, being the second retirement of this race, doesn't really know what he's doing, honestly. He's kind of leaving a very big smoke trail behind his car as he pulls off to the side now. Everyone overtakes him, thankfully. Perez is actually caught up to everyone else. But as you can see, Bottas is still trailing along, not parking up to the side or anything like that. His engine's still blowing smoke, but he's still trundling along the track, which is very interesting. There is a runoff area to the right here, but he doesn't even take that either. He keeps going throughout the track, and I don't know what Bottas is doing. He had plenty of chances to pull over to the side and retire the car, but instead he waits until he gets to the point where Albon pulled over from earlier in the race, and then pulls off there to retire. Very baffling decision there by the Sauber driver, but nonetheless, he is the second retirement from this race. Another retirement for Valtteri in this season. He's had quite a few retirements already this season, and this race is added to the count. As we move on to lap 22, we are making our first pit stop of 2 today on the medium tyres. We're going to be switching over to the medium tyres again for the second stint, which definitely means we will need to pit in again one more time. Verstappen does take the lead of the race. We're wondering if we get ahead of Alonso. Alonso coming for the first corner now, along with Hamilton just behind. At least seems like Alonso has jumped us, but can we get out in front of Hamilton? We nearly are side by side going through turn 2. We take the inside line, and we just remain ahead of Hamilton, which is good for us, but we do need to clear Alonso pretty quickly. We don't want Alonso holding us up here with our fight with Verstappen for the win. So hopefully we can get the move done very, very quickly.
Okay, this isn't our true position. They haven't yet pitted and they're on a one-stopper. So don't waste time fighting because they should be coming in soon.
Well, we're on a 2-stopper, engineer, so we're going to need to clear Alonso pretty quickly because we don't want to lose more time to Verstappen. As we come up to the castle section now, we've got a good run coming out of the corner. We pull alongside, we brake a little bit later, and we actually go around the outside of a corner that you really shouldn't be overtaking at, and we make the move stick on Alonso. That was an incredible overtake there from us as we move up to P2 now. Alonso did not see that coming, but we're up to P2, which is good news for us. We can now start chasing Verstappen down and hopefully retake the lead from him. Remember, Verstappen still needs to pit. We both need to pit in once, one more time. As we see this Ferraris of Sainz and Leclerc going side by side into turn 1. Remember, Leclerc starting down in P17, so he's on a bit of a recovery drive right now. But Sainz overtaking him with the fresher tyres, getting ahead of his teammate. Probably should have made it a bit easier there, Leclerc, but Sainz is ahead anyway and on his way. As we are now on lap 26, the halfway point in this race, we've caught up to Verstappen now. His hard tyres seemingly giving out the ghost. As we head down the main straight, slipstream enabled, DRS enabled. We pull to the outside with our superior straight line speed, brake a little bit later with our fresher tyres, we cover him off, and retake the lead of this race. So we are now in the net lead of this race. Verstappen and I still need to pit one more time, so the pit stop advantage there for Verstappen has been negated, and we retake the lead of this race. So very good news there for us in our quest to win this race, as we see Russell now going side by side with Perez into turn 1. Perez trying to go around the outside and actually does make the move. Very good stuff there from Perez, but Russell staying side by side. He's trying to keep his nose in it. And Piastri now looking to make a move on the pair of them. And Piastri actually blast by both Russell and now Perez going around the outside of turn 3. Piastri making a double move there in the space of one corner. Very good move there from the Australian as he moves out to the top 10. Very good stuff. What an overtake. Piastri has definitely had some of the best overtakes this season, so yeah, he's adding to those very good overtakes with that one here in Baku. As we see Verstappen coming in on lap 30 now for his one and only pit stop. He's probably going to go onto the mediums, and sure enough, he is. So Verstappen does not need to pit in again. He needs to do 20 laps on the mediums, which is definitely doable. So Verstappen not needing to come in again. Obviously, we do need to come in again, and Verstappen now is going to be the faster car because of his fresher tyres. So hopefully we can gain at least a pit stop advantage on him before we have to make our pit stop later on in this race. Verstappen down to P5, but with cars in front of him needing to pit in again, it's not really much of an issue for him as he blasts by Sainz actually going on to lap 33, making a very easy move down the DRS straight, and Verstappen's now to P2 and is now clear to close the gap on us and maybe even jump us as we make our second and final pit stop of this race. Speaking of the second pit stop, here it is now on lap 38. We're coming into the pit lane for our second and final tyre change. Verstappen about 20-21 seconds behind us, so it's going to be very close coming out the pit lane for who's going to be in the lead. But we are going on to soft tyres, so we will have the tyre advantage for this last section of the race. Put on the softs now. We can see Verstappen's icon going down the main straight, but I don't think he's going to jump us. And he's not. As we come out the pit exit, we are quite a bit ahead of Verstappen, making our final pit stop. So we have kept the lead going to the last section of this race. And with our tyre advantage, I don't think Verstappen's going to be troubling us that much. As we move on to lap 44 now, Norris slipstreaming past Tsunoda here, going into lap 45, trying to go around the outside of turn 1. Seems like the outside is a very good place to overtake here, actually, all things considered. And Norris trying to make the move done, but Tsunoda keeping his nose in as we go into turn 2. And he actually does keep his nose in, and now Tsunoda has the DRS. But Norris does get some traction, but again, Tsunoda has the DRS, same with Hamilton behind. Tsunoda trying to go around the outside of Norris, and again, the outside seems to be a very good line here. And sure enough, Tsunoda takes the position back from Lando. This should be a very interesting fight all the way to the end of the race. But we'll see how it goes. We move on to the last lap now. We see Russell side by side with Ocon. I think they've touched, actually. I think I saw a piece of front wing maybe come off from one of the cars. But Russell trying to make a move on Ocon here. He's on the inside, but remember, the outside seems to be the best place here. As we see now Ocon and Russell side by side, and Leclerc actually joining in as well, making it 3 wide on the last lap for the last set of points places. Leclerc goes on the inside of the pair of them, but has to back off because 3 into that corner does not go. And he backs off and doesn't take the position. And in fact, Russell is the winner in that one because he ends up overtaking Ocon for P9. Ocon now down to P10. Maybe Leclerc can get Ocon before the end of the race. Only time will tell. But back at the front, after the last pit stop, it was pretty trivial. We had the fresher tyres, we had the pace advantage. And yeah, we're 15 seconds ahead of Verstappen, who's also like 21 seconds of Alonso. So we've all had some pretty lonely races here, the top 3. But I don't think any of us are going to care about that. So yeah, as we move on to the final straight now for the final time, blasting towards the finish line. He got replaced in real life, but in our simulated season, he's defied the odds and is going to take Williams his first win of the season as Logan Sargeant crosses the line.
Some of that.
To win the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Very good stuff, and I'm sure Williams are going to be partying along into the night tonight as Carlos Sainz gets driver of the day. I think Sargeant deserves it more because he is the winner today.
What a story this is! Logan Sargeant takes the win!
Race win, fastest lap as well, so that extra point for them today. And what a masterful performance. They really showed a clean pair of heels to the rest of the opposition out there today. They had no answer for them.
So here they come now, with Williams leading the way to the podium. A hard-fought victory for the team today, and one I'm sure they'll savour. It's Williams, today's winners.
So there we go, Azerbaijan Grand Prix done. Logan Sargeant is the winner. Max Verstappen takes another second place, along with second place at Monza, and Fernando Alonso back on the podium for the first time in quite a while, I believe. So good news for him and Aston Martin there. And that's round 17 done. We only have 7 races left of this season. That's very wild. Feels like only yesterday we were in Bahrain starting off this simulated season, and here we are now heading towards Singapore for the next race. As we see now, Logan Sargeant is indeed the winner of today's race, along with fastest lap as well. Max Verstappen in P2, Alonso in P3, Yuki Tsunoda does hold off Lando Norris for P4, Hamilton in P6, Gasly 7th, Carlos Sainz in 8th, George Russell in 9th, and Esteban Ocon is the last of the points paying finishers in 10th. As the rest of the classified finishers, Leclerc is in 11th, a decent recovery drive. I'm sure he would have liked to get at least a point, but he has to settle for 11th. Hülkenberg in 12th, Zhou 13th after starting in 4th. That's a bit of a disappointing result for him, along with Sergio Perez, who's down in 14th, and Piastri, who finished down in 15th in the end. Lance Stroll in 16th, Kevin Magnussen in 17th, and Daniel Ricciardo probably had the most disappointing result of them all, finishing in 18th place and the only car to be lapped in this race. He just did not have the pace in the race today, which was very surprising. And we had 2 retirements, which were Valtteri Bottas and Alexander Albon. And there we go. That is the Azerbaijan Grand Prix done and dusted. Next race is in a week's time. It's the Singapore Grand Prix around Marina Bay Street Circuit night race. Should be very fun. It's also the last race before we have another month's break, because this calendar isn't weird enough. So yeah, we got one more race and then another month's break. So if you don't like these videos on my YouTube channel, then you get another month's break from them. So I'm sure you'll be happy about that one. But Yep, we got Singapore still using the new layout they introduced last year, so yep, should be a bit less of a technical thing, but it's still going to be a challenge. Hopefully you'll tune in for that one. Week's time, I believe that is the 20th of September. That will be the Singapore Grand Prix. Hopefully you'll tune in for that. As for the standings, after the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, Max Verstappen extends his advantage to Lando Norris up to 34 points now. He has a race, more than a race victory in hand. Verstappen looking like he's going to win this championship pretty convincingly after not having a very good start. But he's bounced back and yeah, he's definitely taken the championship in his hands. As I said, Norris is still in second, Yuki Tsunoda in third, closing the gap a little bit on Lando after just finishing ahead of him today. Leclerc down to fourth now after not scoring here in Baku. He's had a bit of a disappointing weekend. Hamilton closing in as well. He did get some good points here. I'm sure he would love to have gained more points, but he remains in fifth. Alonso catching up to him in sixth and getting ahead of Sainz in seventh now. Now the two Spaniards are separated by 10 points. Gasly remains in eighth. Albon remains in ninth and Piastri is in 10th. Gasly getting some distance, I believe, between Albon and Piastri since them two did not score any points here today. And Gasly managed to score 6. So consolidating his 8th place there, but it's still pretty close between them. And Perez is also not too far behind them either. So the last part of that top 10 should be interesting. As for the constructors, Red Bull extend their advantage over Ferrari at the top by up to 17 points now. McLaren still remaining there or thereabouts in third with 251 points. RB still in fourth with 225, gaining some distance on Mercedes, who remain in fifth with 212. Aston Martin still in sixth with 178 points, inching ever closer to Mercedes, so it could be a very interesting fight for fourth, fifth, and sixth, maybe even third. In fact, I think the top 6 probably all still have a shot at winning the title, honestly. Sauber remain in seventh. Williams jump Alpine to 8th, and now Williams are only 12 points behind the Sauber team, so P7 should be interesting as well. I mean, Alpine is still there as well. Team that is not really there is Haas. They still remain in last with 61 points to their name. Hopefully they can get some good points finishes in the last bit of the season and maybe get off last place. And there we go. That is the Azerbaijan Grand Prix done around Baku. Hopefully you enjoyed the race. If you did, make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, make sure to comment. Engagement is very good and all that. As I said earlier, the next race is the Marina Bay Street Circuit in Singapore in a week's time on the 20th of September. So hopefully you look forward to that. And yes, hopefully you enjoyed this race. Hopefully your days and weeks and whatever go well. And hopefully I'll see you all next time.